Welcome again. All right, I thought I had used up my time on StreamYard, but I have one more day, so I'm going to make the best of it today and present one more StreamYard production, at least at the advanced level. Okay, so let's get started. I'm sorry, the material that I'm using it is coming from this book by Dr. Yosef Ben Yaakman. Um, Dr. Ben is preeminent scholar. That's Dr. Ben, not me. See if I can move it over. Here we go. So Dr. Yusuf A. Ben Yakanin is a scholar, Egyptian history specifically, and I learned a lot traveling with him over about 6 or 7 tours in Egypt, some as his assistant tour leader. He wrote this book that I used extensively. This book is Black Man in the Nile and His Family, and I'm sure you can still find it on bookshelves and bookstores. But a lot of the information I use, I get it from this book. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so my slides, as usual, begin with the goal. Our goal is to be able to read the sacred script of our African ancestors, and that script is called Medu Neter. Okay, so we did a lot about our people. This series of slides, I want to talk about our leaders. So on the right hand, we see a list of the leaders or the Nswt Bities from the 19th dynasty. 19th dynasty lasted from 1340 to 1232. It's a total of 118 years. Uh, and some of the leaders from that um, dynasty is who I will focus on today. But what is it that our leaders were required to do? Well, our leaders were responsible for protecting us physically by defending the family from all enemies, foreign and domestic. It sounds familiar, right? Yeah. But this is what our leaders did. They fought. Their names were written in Chinu. Right? We call these cartouches. The French word is cartouche. Their names were written in Chinu so that they would live for eternity in our hearts and our minds. The Chinu is a symbol of eternity. Our leaders were responsible for protecting us spiritually by building temples to remind us of our relationship to Neteru, who are also our ancestors. So they do say we do ancestor worship. I agree with that. Many of those temples that they built still stand to remind us of who we of us who we are. I forgot the word are, and what we must do to regain our African consciousness. Our ancestors built for eternity. So this temple again was built during the 19th dynasty, and it still stands. That is over 2,300 years ago. This temple is in a place or at a place called Abydos. And Abydos is across the Nile River from Waset. Waset is also called uh, Thebes or Luxor. It was constructed during the beginning of the 19th dynasty. So the beginning of the 19th dynasty would have been around 1340 before the Common Era. the stone blocks in the foreground suggest that there was an older temple, maybe more than one temple built there at this site. The Nswt Bity of the first dynasty, Narmer, Mena, Aha, they are buried there. These pharaohs were first, second, third dynasty period, and they are buried at this site. So this was a holy site, uh, and it is believed that the Necher, Usir, or Osiris, as some would say, is said to be buried at this site. So there are two temples built on this site, two main temples built at the site. Okay, I want to change something. Okay. Uh, the larger one was built during the time of Setai I, and the smaller one was built during the time of Ramses II, who was Setai I's son. The temple built by Ramses II, uh, the temple built by Setai I is dedicated to seven netchers, seven netcheru. Those seven are Set, which kind of makes sense because in the Nswt Bity's name, his name is Setai One, right? So it's built to the Netcher Set, to the Netcher Ptah, to the Netcher Ra Harakti, to the Netcher Amun Ra, or Amin Ra, to the Netcher Usir, or Osiris, like different spellings in different books. I use the WSR most of the time. To the Netcheret Aset, or Ast, who's also identified as Isis, and to the Netcher Heru, who is also identified as Horus. And when you go inside the temple, you can see the names, the name of Netcher Nswt Bity Men Ma'at Ra. Uh, and you can see that name twice, right? Those red arrows pointed out. And so that is the Nswt Bity in the back, in the far left, and that is his son, Ramses II, in front of him. And that is apparently a scroll in Ramses II's hand. It's kind of hard to tell because this is carved onto the sides of the wall, and in front of the, uh, the scroll would be a list of the names. That I showed that in a previous slide. But so here we can see that Setai I is reminding his son Ramses II of his legacy and his responsibilities as a Nswt Bity, or as a leader of people. Uh, the last names on this set of names turned out to be the Nswt Bity Men Ma'at Ra, and it is also probably because this temple was finished during the time of Nswt Bity Men Ma'at Ra. So we can see that last Shanu has the men symbol at the bottom, Ma'at in the middle, and Ra at the top. Now there are other Nswt Bities ahead of that. I did a lesson, I think I did lesson 8, that identifies all of these Nswt Bities, but I'm not going to do that for this particular lesson. But again, this is so Ramses II was showing his son the list of Nswt Bities up to and including himself. Ramses II's name is not even listed here because at this point, Ramses II is not a Nswt Bity. So in Dr. Ben's book, he has them listed for us, and more. This is just some of the list. He has in Dr. Ben's book. There's a complete list of all the Nswt Bities, and so this is again the 19th dynasty. I believe there were 33 dynasties. Most of them were indigenous Africans. Then at the end, we had the Greeks come in, and the Greeks adopted these ideas, and then The Romans came in and they adopted these same ideas and these same natures, and they worshiped the same natures. And then at some point, they just changed the names, right? But the first three names of Nswt Bitis for the 19th dynasty are listed here. So we have Nswt Bity Men Petet Ra, right? And we look at the name. We have the men symbol. We have the Ra. We have the head of a lion, and we have two loaves of bread. So that is transliterated with the letters MN, PHTT, and Ra is Ra. So we have Men Petet Ra, and his Sarah name is Ra Mesu, right? Hopefully, all of these are familiar because we've seen all of these symbols earlier. We did not see the lion's head before. That's a new one. So that's the PH symbol, PH transliteration. Then after uh, Nswt Bity Men Petet Ra, Sarah Ra Mesu, we have Nswt Bity Men Ma'at Ra, and Sarah Ptah Mary Nseti. So this is who's building this temple. We have Sarah Ptah Mary Nseti, who they just call Setai 1, right? Because there is a Setai 2 that comes after. And then we have the third pharaoh in the list is Nswt Bity Usma'at Ra Setepten Ra, Sarah Ra Mesu Mary Amen, who again we just call Ramesses II. And as I indicated before in the last video, we have his Sutenhem's name listed at the bottom. That's his royal wife, and his Sutenmut's name, which is his royal mother, listed at the bottom. And so the Sutenhem is As Nefert, which is Aset, a beautiful Aset. We translate that into English. That's his royal wife, and his royal mother is Sut Mut Tui, right? Uh, Often just referred to as Tui. Now, how do we know this temple is the temple of Ramesses? I'm sorry, Setai 1. How do we know that? Because inside of the temple, we see his name in colors. And it's very easy for us to identify who was in charge or who was the leader at the time that the temple was built because it's right there in front of us. And again, we've seen most of these. I think I don't know that we did see Nswt Bity. So we have the suit plant with the loaf of bread below it, and we have the Egyptian bee with the loaf of bread below that, and that is translated as pronounced Nswt Bity, and is translated as the um, representative of Upper and Lower Nile Valley, or Upper and Lower Kemet, or Upper and Lower Egypt, depending on what you're going to use. In the other column, we see the pin-tailed duck and the solar disk, which is Sa-Ra, which also we've already identified as the son of Ra. So in one name is the title Nswt Bity, the next name is titled Sa-Ra. Then below that, we can see listed some other information about the Nswt Bity. And again, this is maybe a little bit new. I don't remember covering this before, not at least recently. I've covered it in other videos. So the basket, the large basket is identified as Neb, and transliterated the letters NB. And below that is two pieces of land. The two pieces of land are each called Ta, and because there are two, we do the Ui. So this is Ta Ui, right? So it's kind of like when we had the two reed leaves for the Y. We don't have the Uchik here, but this is transliterated TWY, and we say Taui or Neb Taui, which is translated as Lord of the Two Lands. And on the right side, we have Neb, again, kind of hard to see. And then we have the sunrise, or the sun rising over the horizon. That's Kau and Aka. actually ka. And then we have the three vertical strokes, which is plural, which tells us it's going to end with the W or U. So this is Neb Kau. So one title we have Neb Taui, and the other title we have Neb Kau. So Lord of the Two Lands or Lord of the Rising Suns. And then we have the two names. So the Nswt Bity name is called the prenomen, and we would transliterate this with the MN for the min game, which is at the bottom. And then we have the Netcher Ret Ma'at, kind of hard to see there. And then we have the solar disk Ra. So that's Men Ma'at Ra. And on the right hand side, again, difficult to see, but there is an image of Ptah, uh, another symbol for Mary, third symbol that we haven't seen. Well, no, there is. It's the it's the it's the irrigation. Um, it's the irrigation canal, which is hard to see. It's kind of at the bottom, and then we have the ripple of water, which is N, and then we have Seti. Right? Again, those are hard to see, but I can make out the two reed leaves, and that tells me that it's Seti. And again, other images are easier to identify that. But I use this just because of the colors. I like the colors here. And then at the very bottom, in the left-hand column, we have the all-seeing eye, the seat of Aset, and we have the Netcher sitting behind that. That is always the way we see the name Usir, right? That is the Netcher Usir. And below Usir, we see the Neb bone, and below that, we see the twisted flax, the solar disc, and then again, the twisted flax. Now, again, I use my understanding of symmetry and the way things are written. And I believe that would be, well, Usir is Usir, Neb is Neb, but the twisted flax is the H. And so it could be H and then Ra, then H, but I think it's Hehe Ra, Hehe Ra, because Hehe is translated as uh, eternal, forever. So this is Lord Usir, eternity. And on the right hand side, we have again the seed of Aset, and then we have the loaf of bread, and we have the egg, and we have the neteret sitting behind that. So that's Aset, or again, sometimes people say Isis. So some people say this is Osiris and Isis. I say Usir and Aset. So Aset and Usir are the parents of Horus or Heru. And then below Aset, we see a bird. That's a were bird. That's a new bird. We haven't seen that bird before. And the loaf of bread. So that's translated as Wert. I actually lost the T on that one. It should be a T after that. So that's Wert. And then we see Netcher, and there's actually a vulture behind that, and that's Moot. So Netcheret Moot, because there's also a loaf of bread behind Moot. So this is Aset, Wert Netcheret Moot, or Aset, the great Netcheret Moot. So all together, the left-hand column, reading from top to bottom into the faces. And again, I'm not reading at the very top. I'm starting at the Nswt Bity. So I have Nswt Bity Neb Taui, Men Ma'at Ra, Usir Neb Hehera. And in the next column, right, again, starting at the Sarah, we have Sarah Neb Kau, Ptah Mary Nseti, Aset Wert Netcheret Mut. Again, I'm missing the T on the where. I just noticed that. So to Wert, because there is behind the bird, right above the bird's tail, is the loaf of bread. So it should be Wert. All right, so in this scene here, what we see is is inside the temple now. So we're inside the temple. Another fascinating thing about this particular temple is the colors. So in this scene, what we can see is Sarah, Ptah, Mary, and Sati. Right, that is the so-called, the name we use is Pharaoh, but I will use the Sarai. This is Sarah, Ptah, Mary, and Seti, and he's being embraced by the Necher Seti. And again, that kind of makes sense. I'm going to suggest that Seti is the Necher that he is most connected to because it's in his name, right? But he also has Ptah in his name. So Ptah, Mary, and Seti. And if I would try to translate that, that's Ptah, love of Seti. Interesting name. And then another scene, again, all of this is in the temple, where again, this temple is dedicated to 7 deities. So here we can see Sarah, Ptah, Mary, and Seti, and he's receiving the crook and the flail and the was symbol. Uh, and he's receiving that from Necher Seti. Again, it makes sense because his name is Seti. And these symbols, the crook, the flail, and the was, are symbols of his authority. And who did he get it from? He got them from the Necher Seti. That is a long story about, not long, there's a story about Horus and Seti, Set, but that's for another time. Again, inside the temple, we can see Sarah, Ptah, Mary, and Seti kneeling before the Neteru, the 2 Netches, Ptah on the left. And you could always identify Ptah because he has this kind of tight cap on his head most of the time, or all the time, for all I've seen. And on the right hand, we see Ra Harakti. And we can identify this as Ra Harakti because of the Horus, because of the falcon head, and the solar disk on top. And here again, we can see Sarah, Ptah, Mary, and Seti making offerings to Amen. Again, Amen is identified by the tall feathers on the top of his head in the middle, in the center of the panel. And then we have Mut. Mut is on the right-hand side, kind of hard to identify because of the angle. And then on the left-hand side, we have again Ra Harakti. Those are considered, in many cases, well, in this case, the Holy Trinity. So we have Amen, the Father, Ra Harakti, the Son, and Mut, the Mother. So we have the Father, the Mother, and the Son, the Holy Trinity. And here, what we can see on this panel, again, amazing colors for a temple that dates back to, like two 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. I'm sorry. It's quite remarkable. So here we can see Sarah, Ptah, Mary, and Seti kneeling before Amun. Now this is Amun, and we call it Amun because of the type of headdress or the what's on the head of the standing Necher, uh, and that is also set behind Amun, and we know that's set because of the throne on top of her head, or the seat that's on top of her head. That's always an indication about Set. And on the right, we see that Sarah, Ptah, Mary, and Seti is making an offering to Usir and Aset. So Usir is again seen sitting in mummy wrappings, which is another way we see Usir. But he also has the position of Ptah. So there's some interesting relationships between the deities. I mean, they kind of I don't want to try to explain the understanding, but um, I mean, there's one God, but all of them. There's many manifestations of the one God. I guess that's the best way to say it. There are many manifestations of the one God. Many manifestations. Here in this panel on the wall, we can see Sarah, Ptah, Mary, and Seti receiving the scimitar The scimitar is a tool used in war, and he's receiving the scimitar. And you could also see um, him receiving. It's hard to tell, but there are Ankh and Jed symbols going from uh, the uh, the symbol that's in Amun's head, Amun's hand, Amin's hand, sorry, into Sarah Patel, Mary Nseti's face. It's also coming from the left side, and that is Kanum. And these are symbols of strength and everlasting life. So both of these netures are providing strength and everlasting life to Sarah Patel, Mary Nseti. And then we have again, we can see Sarah Patel, Mary Nseti receiving the crook and flail and west from Necher Heru. Again, identifying these becomes what we do as we study and we recognize the different representations of the different natures or different aspects of the different natures, right? And these are also, again, symbols of authority that he's receiving. And in return, he is burning incense to the nature. And then there are tons of scenes. I take many pictures when I travel to Egypt, and I'm sharing as many as I can in this short period of time. So here again, we can see Sarah Ptah Mary and Seti, and he's receiving Ankh from Nechuret Het Heru. Right? Hard to identify this image because of the sort of the damage that's happening, but we see the cow's horns, we see the solar disc, and that's usually an indication of the Nechuret Het Heru. And I think this is the last slide. In this case, this is a fascinating one. We see, in this case, this is, believe it or not, um, this is Sarah Pata Mary and Sati. In this case, he's seated and he's surrounded by five Nechiretu. Now, I use that term because these are female netches and there's more than one of them. So the T tells me that there's feminine, the W tells me there's more of them. From left to right, the one with the throne and the Neb symbol on her head, all the way on the left, that is Nebet Het, right? And in front of her, we have a female with the symbol of Horus on her head. And I don't recognize that one. I have not been able to identify that representation. And but right in front of that is the symbol of Aset, again clearly identified because she has the throne seated on her head always. So and Nebet and Set are sisters according to the way the myth goes. And then on the right hand side, the first one is Ma'at. We know that's Ma'at because she has the feather, the ostrich plume in her headband. And to the right of her, I did not come up with that. At least, oh, I know that's Ani. That is the goddess Anetret Ani. Right. So besides the role of the Nswt Bity in terms of preserving and presenting information about the spirituality and trying to remind the people of their ancestors and recognizing who came before them. They also had to protect the country. And they were always outsiders. So the Sarah, Patah, Mary, and Sati protected our people from foreign enemies who did not believe in Neteru. When they came in there, they had no ideas of nature, of God. And so, unfortunately, their behavior required them to be bound. And you can see that all of these are foreigners from the area that we would call Lower Egypt, because they're all tied with uh, uh, papyrus flowers. And you can actually identify where they came from because their names are in Chinese below them. So apparently they were bound for eternity. So that was all I have for today. I didn't, uh, I didn't know that I could do it in that shorter period of time, but I did want to complete this process because I think I indicated before I am not going to be using this software, at least not this level any longer. I thought it ended yesterday, but it actually gave me one more day. So I hope this made sense. I have gotten some great feedback from some folks. I appreciate the feedback, and I hope to be able to present some more information soon. But ask questions, and hopefully I can answer your questions for you. Meanwhile, I wish you a great evening, and I would say Shem Hotep.